Bryce Harper is back at first base and has returned from the wrist injury which left him on the injured list. But it is not all sunshine and rainbows for the Phillies' clear franchise centerpiece and the best player on the roster, as he spoke to the media members talking about how this wrist injury could linger a bit. I want to break down why I have legitimate concern for what Bryce Harper's outlook is and why I think this is the biggest story surrounding this entire Phillies team. Going to dive into exactly why that is the case here. But before I do want to remind you guys, as always, to make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. That at this point in time, only 26.2% of you guys watching these videos have subscribed to us here at Phillies Digest. We are past the halfway point of the season and cruising through. The playoffs already sneaking on the horizon. The trade deadline about to get here. We got a lot of excitement to get into. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the franchise centerpiece himself and Bryce Harper. Now, we know the status of him missing a little bit of time with his wrist injury, but it was not this clear-cut, I'm back and I feel 100% in a way that most of us would hope. A couple quotes that I do want to highlight here. First is coming from Taryn Hatcher, who tweets out a little video from the media scrum. And I will say, when you watch the video, just don't love the demeanor and the way that he's speaking about this injury. And the quote specifically that she highlights is, she says, Harper says his decision to return is partly because his felt his wrist was, quote, at a standstill in terms of feeling good. Says it's something he'll have to manage. Not great there. And another quote I did want to pull is coming from Devin Caney of WIP here, who tweets out, Bryce Harper spoke with us about his wrist before tonight's game, this being in his first game back. He said he's talked with multiple doctors and there is no structural issue with the wrist. Quote, we haven't really got too many answers about that. Again, not what I want to hear here. If doctors are looking at the wrist and not seeing any sort of specific issue, you're essentially chasing ghosts from a treatment perspective. That this isn't a specific, you sprained your ankle, rest your ankle a couple days and then you're better. This is something where they can't exactly identify when it's going on. And this has been an issue that Bryce Harper was dealing with. And I think ESPN sums it up pretty well in their article, which I do want to highlight here, as it writes, Harper went on the 10-day injured list on June 6th, but the condition has bothered him at least dating back to last season. Harper said that when he went on the IL that he felt pain in the wrist during a large portion of last season when he had 30 homers while helping the Phillies win the NL East. A two-time National League MVP and 8-time All-Star, Harper played through the discomfort this season and hit .258 with 9 home runs, 34 RBIs, and 8 stolen bases in 57 games. He also sat out 5 games from May 26th to June 2nd because of a bruised right elbow after being hit by a pitch from Atlanta's Spencer Strider. Harper went 1 for 11 after he was hit by Strider. Without Harper, the Phillies went 13-14, but still lead the NL East. And I did want to highlight Harper's quote on this, as the article continues saying, Harper said there was little difference in how the wrist felt between when he swung the bat or had to throw the ball in the field. He didn't necessarily rule out serving as the designated hitter, a spot where Kyle Schwarber has thrived this season with 25 home runs, and Thomson said he didn't know yet if that would be an option. Phillies rookie sensation, and by the way, shout out Otto Kemp for getting rookie sensation in the ESPN article, but it writes, Phillies rookie sensation Otto Kemp started 20 of 21 games since he was called up to replace Harper in June. Kemp has 10 RBIs in 20 games, but was not in Monday's lineup. The right-hander hitting Kemp also can play third base in the outfield, which leaves plenty of opportunities to earn at-bats, even with Harper's return. Quote, I imagine he's going to stick around and be in our lineup, Harper said. He's deserved the right to do that with the way that he's played. So do love that Harper is giving Otto Kemp his flowers here, and Otto Kemp could ultimately prove to be a very vital part of this Phillies season, because let's think through this for a second. If Bryce Harper cannot play the field, as he left the door open from a designated hitter standpoint, let's not forget this is the same Bryce Harper that absolutely tore it up in the regular season and playoffs with a torn UCL in his arm because he could not throw. That he was a designated hitter because he physically could not throw in that arm there, and he still delivered for this Phillies team. Bryce Harper is going to fight through this, but it's still a concern that that's going to linger. That a wrist issue specifically, and if we are talking about him serving as a designated hitter, then that means Kyle Schwarber has to play left field. Then all of a sudden, things get complicated there. We know the limitations of what Schwarber brings from a left field perspective, and when it was such a poor outfield that it was Schwarber in left and Castellanos in right, that's when Johan Rojas became a necessity in center field, that you needed him to make up that level of ground because Schwarber and Castellanos simply are not going to cover a lot there. That's a tough spot to walk into the playoffs, and I think we've had a lot of our conversations centered around Johan Rojas can't just be the guy from a center field perspective. It would be one thing if we were seeing these tangible strides for him improving at the plate, not just being a giveaway out every time he's up there, but it simply is not happening. If anything, to be honest, I would argue some regression from the Johan Rojas standpoint for his approach to the plate, the lack of productivity, and we know that the best case scenario is this guy is getting to like a league average hitter, but we don't even have time to get to the best case scenario. We got to operate in what we currently see. That is not a great situation if we're talking about it. If Kyle Schwarber has to break out the glove and play left field. In an ideal world that he maintains the designated hitter role, and I will note, Bryce Harper is excellent at first base, but this is a guy that plays the position well, incredibly beyond his years for a guy that's gotten pretty limited reps at being a first baseman. Like, to compare him to Rhys Hoskins, he's night and day better than Rhys Hoskins at just playing first base there. And of course, we know the real story is with the bat here. I'm not that worried if Bryce Harper can't play first base. It complicates things, but Otto Kemp could be the clear plug in there for the fix, but it makes the roster management real difficult. But the real factor is, does Bryce Harper have his bat or not? Is this a guy that can still hit for power? Because that's the number one thing that popped off the page for a lot of Harper's season to this point. That to highlight what he has brought to the table overall this year, that he has 9 home runs on the season, 34 RBIs, 36 walks across 215 at-bats, 55 hits there. He's also struck out 47 times. While these are fine numbers by your average player standpoint, those aren't Bryce Harper numbers. And the power is the number one thing that is popping off the page to me. This has been a team-wide problem, that it has been a reduction in power, that they have not been hitting home runs at the same rate, and a lot of that is centered right back to Bryce Harper. Currently, Kyle Schwarber is the only Phillies player on pace to hit over 30 home runs this year. That's tough. Over 20 home runs is, I believe, the actual stat there. As second on the team, we're talking about 10 and 11 home runs. It's basically only Schwarber pulling the charge to this point. And Harper's numbers are going to be distorted because of the missed time, but can you return to being that guy? If Bryce Harper can't be the best player on this Phillies team, we are looking down a dark path from a playoff perspective, and especially when we bring in the other factors, the long-term concerns of Kyle Schwarber with being set to be an impending free agent, set to choose his destination at the end of the offseason. What is the ultimate conclusion here? What does come down? Now, to give a little bit of, positivity here, I did want to pull up this quote from John Clark, who tweeted this out. This happened before Bryce officially made his return, and he said, Bryce Harper says he is very happy. He says that he is way ahead of where he thought he would be even 3 weeks ago. He says there is an area in his wrist that had a lot of pain a few weeks ago, and he's not feeling the pain there now. He says there is some soreness, and they will have to manage that, but he says that there is no swelling or inflammation after taking batting practice on the field today. Hopefully he will be back in the lineup next week at Citizens Bank Park, which of course we know came to fruition, but my concern with that being is it felt great when he wasn't playing, and then all of a sudden the soreness and the management, all those pop back to the surface. This feels like an issue that's just going to linger with Bryce Harper. And again, I fully trust and believe this guy's going to fight through and give everything he's got, but if his best is not what his best should be, that's a problem from the Phillies' perspective, that they do have to find a way to make up for that level of production, and this entire Phillies era is designed around Bryce Harper here. Everything makes more sense when this guy is on the field and producing. Just from a lineup perspective, the way that you can move guys around, separate Kyle Schwarber, Alec Boehm, not as important from a power standpoint, or batting fourth in the lineup. JT Realmuto can slot down a couple. It all makes more sense when Bryce Harper is here, but if you're not getting the Bryce Harper, that is a concern for this Phillies team. I did not like these quotes coming out whatsoever. These were quotes that made me nervous. Them not having a plan, him saying it's at a standstill. This is not what we want to see for a guy that is coming back from a pretty extended stint on the injured list there. So we'll see what ultimately goes down from here. Maybe the production turns on its head and Bryce Harper can put these doubts to rest himself, but it's not exactly what we should want to hear from an optics standpoint. This is not a glowing review of this guy's ready to bring 100% the rest of the season, and that certainly has my concerns leveled there. So let me know what you guys think about all that. Do want to hear what your level of concern is for Bryce Harper. And of course, one more time, do want to remind you guys, as always, to make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. Again, 73.8% of you guys watching these videos have not subscribed to us here at Phillies Digest just yet. We're going to keep plugging through this season one way or another, and hopefully with a better version of Bryce Harper than we've seen to this point. Sending good vibes to that wrist injury, and do hope he makes a full recovery and is able to look like the Bryce Harper that we know and love here. But ultimately, time will tell. But let me know what you guys think about all that in the comments. As always, appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like on this video here. We'll be back talking to you next time right here on Phillies Digest. Peace.